All right, Donnie's saying we know what time it is because next up is his
sure
school.
do.
The Cy-Hawk rivalry, Iowa at Iowa State, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Can Iowa State keep it rolling against its biggest rival? So Iowa State right now is one of 4 teams in the country with a 2-0 record because they beat number 17 Kansas State in Ireland in week 0, and they beat an FCS semifinalist from last year in South Dakota in week 1. Because of that, you can argue Iowa State's been the most impressive team in the Big 12 so far this season. They look for its second straight 3-0 start this week against Iowa in the annual Cy-Hawk rivalry. It's a game that Iowa has historically dominated, winning 47 of these 71 games between them. However, Iowa State has won 2 of the last 3 matchups, including last year's game, which was a 20-19 thriller that we had. So Iowa State looking to keep it rolling, and Iowa looking for revenge after last year.
What was it? Was it a 60-yarder that Kyle Conradi hit to end the game last year? And you had the big Jalen Knoll catch over Sebastian Castro. And Iowa State last year, just such a scratch-and-claw victory. I believe they were down 10-0 in that game. Iowa was dominating early, right? And then Iowa State just found a way, right? It's Rocco Beck gunslinging. It was Jaden Higgins. It was Jalen Knoll. Jalen Knoll had a massive game last year and just found a way to do it. And as always, Iowa State's defense kept them in it. So, look, these games are always close because of just how much these two teams hate each other and how good the defenses are.
So you have the Iowa State offense in this one with Rocco Becht playing pretty well so far through 2 games. What should we know when they're going up against a great defensive coordinator, Phil Parker?
So we got to take a broader look at Iowa State's offense because last year all we talked about all year, right, was Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll and these 2 receivers, and these are the guys that win them ball games, right? Well, those 2 are gone. Obviously, we've talked about it 100 times already. It's going to be different at Iowa State. It sure is different. Let me give you an Iowa fact first, okay? 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 1 back. Iowa had the highest usage rate in the country last year, right around 70%. Right?
That's not shocking at all, by the way.
Not at all. And I'm going to tell you a lesser shocking thing. Iowa this year is second, and it's early, but they're going to be at the top. Second in the country. Who's the one team they're behind? Take a wild guess in this preview.
Is it Iowa?
It's Iowa State. Iowa State's number 1. They're running 12 personnel on 73% of their plays this year, okay? They have, instead of centering it around 2 wide receivers like they did with Higgins and Knoll last year, they're centering the entire offense around Ben Bramer and Gabe Burkle. These are the guys. Iowa State's, we've charted 144 offensive plays this year, okay? Take a guess. How many plays have they not had multiple tight ends on the field?
144.
Out of 144.
It's got to be like at least 20 or 30.
4. They have run 4 plays through 2 games with 1 or fewer tight ends on the field.
That's nuts.
They are just running this completely. I'm sure Max Toscano's absolutely loving watching it. Mm-hmm. They've gone to this completely tight end centric offense around Bramer and Burkle in their passing game. Those are the guys getting the explosive plays right now. They're hoping for complementary pieces at wide receiver right now, like Dom Overby, right? And you're Edskelson. I think you're talking about, though, this team. They want to run the football. They're messing around with formations. And Bramer and Burkle, they're both good enough to flex out and put them wherever you want, right? You're talking about an offense, 73% usage. 77.6 team offense grade in 12 personnel, 6.8 yards per play, 10.3 yards per pass. So what it's doing is it's allowing them, and look, they've got an offensive line that sometimes we question, but they're finding ways to run the ball with Hansen and Sama, right? And now you're talking about finding explosive passing plays in weird formations with defenses in base personnel with extra linebackers or 8 in the box and all that. They're finding ways to beat teams different ways because they don't have the wide receivers like they did last year. So are they going to throw 4 wide receivers out there? No, they're not going to do that. They don't have Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. They're beating teams with tight ends. And Rocco Becht's really made a nice adjustment to this style of offense. I'm curious to see how Iowa handles this because it's so much different and we're so used to Iowa with the way Phil Parker runs his defense of locking down these spread offenses, right? They're so good at not giving up explosive plays. But it's almost like Iowa State now is getting old school. And we're going to see if Iowa's going to do it, if they can do it with them, right? And how often they're going to get out of that big quarter shell that they had to play last year with those receivers. It's a weird schematic adjustment. But right now, Iowa State, they're running their offense through the tight ends this year instead of the wide receivers.
So they're averaging 2 plays per game without 2 tight ends on the field.
That's it. They've run 4 out of
nuts,
out of 144 plays. They've had 1 or fewer tight ends.
At least Iowa is used to it in practice, looking against it every day.
Oh yeah,
so they know what to do. It's full personnel.
Nothing, but Iowa State can actually throw to them.
It's true. That's true.
That's a whole different story.
Well, my matchup to watch is, can Iowa State win up front against what looks like another elite offensive line for the Hawkeyes? Iowa's entire offense, it's centered around that offensive line. They entered this year with my number 6 offensive line in the country, and they looked the part in their 34-7 win over Albany in week 1. All 5 starters earned 80-plus PFF grades. Look at that, Dalton. 97.5 offensive line grade.
That'll do.
For Iowa in week 1. They were also the only offensive line in America with 90-plus grades, both in pass protection and run defense. It was the biggest reason why Iowa had 322 rushing yards in the win. Now, I get it. It's Albany. Albany's an FCS school. Iowa State's a much better defense than that. And despite running a defense, you mentioned this before in the Kansas State game, 3 down linemen, 3-3-5 defense. However, Iowa State has been very successful against opposing rushing attacks this year. Kansas State, who normally runs the ball at a very, very elite level, they only had 117 rushing yards against Iowa State and Ireland in week 0. South Dakota only had 82 yards on the ground against Iowa State. So less than 200 yards the entire season so far for Iowa State through 2 games, too. Now, the pass rush is a different story for Iowa State right now. They currently have the 2nd worst pressure rate in the Power 4 at only 17.7%. If Iowa State can win up front with big Dominique Orange there and force Mark Gronowski to throw into the teeth of this really good Iowa State secondary that they have with Jontez Williams back there at corner, I think the Cyclones have a distinct advantage on defense. But if Iowa's offensive line wins up front and doesn't force Mark Gronowski to win as a passer in this game, and they can make him be a complimentary quarterback and really rely on the ground game, that's the avenue where Iowa can win this ball game.
Look, and it's great to run the ball all the time. That's fantastic. But Iowa also Mark Gronowski only threw for 44 yards last week. Yeah. So we know, as always, Iowa wants to win with the run game. And the difference between playing in Iowa versus playing at Kansas State, it's shotgun, it's option, it's gap schemes, it's Avery Johnson flying all over the place. Iowa's run schemes are very simple. Tim Lester's going to get under center. They're going to run mid and outside zone, and they're going to get behind Big Jennings Dunker on the right side, right?
Top 10 prospect in the draft, Trevor Sycamore.
I think he has him 9th overall, whether it's guard or tackle or wherever. Right now, he's Iowa's right tackle, and he's a big monster. Logan Jones in the middle against Dominique Orange. That's one of the best matchups you're going to see all weekend. It's a different approach, and Iowa ran for 211 yards in this game last year. Caleb Johnson went crazy last year. Now, Johnson's gone, but you have Xavier Williams. You have Kamari Moulton. Gronowski is an athlete. He's a rushing threat himself if he wants to scramble, get the bootleg game going, anything like that. So I think we know Iowa State. Look, they're going to focus on stopping the run here. You have to. You're playing Iowa. That's how this works. But against this offensive line that, throw it out there, I picked them to win the Joe Moore Award this year, and they're off to a pretty darn good start, I would say. I know it's you, Albany.
Better than me with Alabama, so great pick.
I'll take it. I'll take it right now. But, I mean, it's the obvious. As it's been for how many years or decades now, make Iowa throw the football.
Yeah.
It's just not that easy, though, when you have that brick wall up front.
Yeah. Iowa's always had an elite offensive line with so many legendary players coming from it, and they look like they have another elite offensive line in 2025. So, Dalton, in the 3rd and final noon game that we're previewing, it has been a 3-point spread in all 3 of these ball games, and both you and I have taken the underdog to outright win both of those ball games so far. Will it be a 3rd straight one? Are you taking Iowa to win outright, or will Iowa State win?
And you know this game's going to be extremely close. I mean, it's these 2 teams. It's always extremely close. The defense always wins the day on both sides. But I'm going to go with the home team and the favorite here. Iowa State 17-13. I just think when you're asking, and again, 2 teams, I think even 2 teams that want to run the football. I think Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, they're going to play big parts in this game for Iowa State. Obviously, it's going to be a grind. Both teams are going to be plodding 4 yards at a time here. But if you're asking me at the end of the day, just like it happened last year with Rocco Becht, which one between Becht and Gronowski am I going to trust to make the throw when it matters most? I'm going to trust Rocco Becht. I think they get just enough done again to beat Iowa State 17-13, defensive, ugly, low-scoring game as it often is between these two.
I also am taking Iowa State in this one. I have it 21-17, the final score. I think the Cyclones perform just well enough in run defense to win this ballgame, and I agree with you. Rocco Beck to make just enough throws against Iowa's defense for the Cyclones to take home the Cy-Hawk Trophy for the third time in 4 years. So I have Iowa State 21-17 over Iowa.
What does Donnie have? Did he put his score in there? I'm sure it's Iowa 30-0 or something.
He goes, "Come on, man, boo!" Noted, by the way. I need a score from Donnie if he gets a chance.
Throw us a score in the chat there, Donnie. I'm sure he's going to say 35-0.
He probably will.
We'll
Gronowski goes for 500 yards. Yeah, he'd probably say that.
What a turnaround that would be. Talk about bringing up an average.